Hey you guys. So I'm going to do a little tutorial today and show you how I figured how to work the first and second row and continuously on a moss stitch project. So right here I'm just going to show you one of my previous projects. This is a moss stitch project I started in Red Heart Super Saver Mexicana. So as in the Marley Bird tutorials, I created a long chain and then I crocheted my first row around the chain for half a zigzag pattern. So around the chain. And so this is really nice when it's a lot cleaner than going into the chain, into the stitches in the chain when doing the first row. And when you go ahead and add a border around it, it's really cool. But there's a problem for me when I start to do fringe on a scarf. So they seem, when you put the fringe inside of this space here, it seems a little bit loose and pulls, and I'm not really quite liking the way it looks on the finished project after I'm complete. So today I was working on another project and I just thought I came to this revelation and thought, hey, maybe there's a different way to do that. So I did it here. This is Wildflower Red Heart Super Saver. So same thing, what I did was I started this long chain and my first row is here. So this is my first row. So I actually crocheted around that first row. It's hard to see it because it's kind of upside down now. I crocheted around the first row starting here. So this blue stitch here was my first stitch. And the second stitch here, this was my second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on. When I got to the end of my row, so I'm doing the zigzag pattern, so I had 10 stitches per row for my zigzag pattern per my color sequence. So when I got here to the end on this 10th stitch, what I did was I did a chain 2 and flipped it upside down and worked into the other side of the chain. So working between on the first row between the 9th and the 10th stitches of row 1, and then the second stitch here on row 2 was between the 8th and 9th stitch of row 1. So kind of working upside down and then continuing on to row 3 and 4 and 5. So row 1 again is upside down, and then I had flipped it to do row 2. So I can show you a little bit here. And pardon my camera work. This is, I believe, my first tutorial. Alright, so I'm going to crochet a long chain. So since my starting chain, or my project is 10 moss stitches across, I'm going to do 20 or more chains just so I can make sure that I'm not going to have it too short or too long. But you can always remove those stitches from the project later. So I'm just going to do it fairly long right here. And it really doesn't matter where you start, what color you start on your project, because once you have that number of stitches that you need, it really doesn't matter. So here I have on my hook, I have this light lavender color. So you can either moss stitch in the 3rd chain or the 4th chain. I choose to do the 3rd chain because I don't like a big gap. So I'm going to go ahead and do my single crochet in the 1st and chain 1. So it's the basic moss stitch. So instead of going into the chain, as Marley Bird shows, I'm going to go around the chain. So crochet around the chain for as many number of stitches that you need for your pattern. And again, mine was 10 stitches. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so here's my 10. So I have 10 stitches. This is going to be my zigzag pattern. So right now, you know, normally I would just chain 2 and then turn and work into the next row. But instead, so I'm going to chain 2. And usually I would just turn here and I would work my first stitch into this stitch. What I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to turn it, flip it upside down. I might want to put this chain behind. So I'm going to flip it upside down so you can see all my stitches now are upside down. And I'm going to work the first moss stitch into this space here. I'm going to chain 1, and then now I'm going to work the second moss stitch of row 2 into the stitch between, sorry, I keep falling here, into this stitch here. So I'm basically working this row upside down, and the rest of it's going to be worked upside down. So the first row will be upside down. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way to the end. So my row 2 is going to be on the opposite of row 1, and so that starting chain will be in the middle of row 1 and row 2. I hope that makes sense. And the last one, there is one in there. Alright, so I should have 10 stitches on row 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. And then I'm going to do as normal. I'm going to chain 2, turn, and then work my row 3 right into row 2. So it's just those first 2 rows that are going to be a little bit different. So the chain is between row 1 and row 2.